Hi, everyone, and welcome back to OneMicNite, the podcast. The podcast that brings you stories of artists and their personal journeys in entertainment, helping to guide, answer questions, and motivate you in life and business. My name is MarcosLuis, and this is season 2 of the podcast, and I'm really excited. I want to thank everybody who's been on this journey with me through season 1. We've met a lot of interesting people, discussed a lot of topics. But this season is going to be even better. We're going to start doing some politics and a lot of things that you guys have been asking for. So thank you for joining me on this journey. If you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe. Click down below. This podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and wherever you download podcasts. It's also available on YouTube at OneMicNite. My guest today, who I am ecstatic about, he is a dancer. He's a choreographer. He is a cabaret singer, an actor. He does it all. Please welcome Brian Alejandro Scott to OneMicNite. How are you?
Hey, Marcos. Thank you for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time. Listen, I have questions. You know I do. Who is Brian Alejandro Scott? That's what we want to know.
That's it. Cloud of Kasim.
Tell us who it is. Who is Brian Alejandro Scott?
Who is Brian Alejandro Scott? Is a complicated man, but I think a man though who represents many different types of men. Briefly on my background, I do grow up and was born in the UK. My mom was from Panama and my dad was from Trinidad. And I came to America when I was young, 10, but I go back and forth, up until the pandemic hit. So I always had my roots in England, which is a whole nother experience in terms of being a man of color in England, opposed to the United States. Although we do face similar situations, but not to the degree and the intensity of the United States. And I will always point out one thing. The UK never had laws on books segregating blacks from whites, separate water fountains and things like that. And yet I've met a lot of people who say, oh, you're from the UK. It's so racist over there. They don't have a passport. They never visited. And so they have a perception as to how the UK is, but they really don't know anything about people of color and our experiences where we come from, Africa, the Caribbean. Those are the two main places where you'll find a lot of people of color in the UK. So that to me is a big part of who I am in terms of my identity. And it didn't happen overnight. I mean, I came here as a child and tried to fit in to whatever was here, and there weren't that many choices. It's either you were, I think at one point you were AfroAmerican, Black,
African American.
There were a few names.
Right, a few names.
So I was like, okay, Afro-American, that sounds cool, but now I don't have the Afro. So
Right.
And my mom still says Afro-American. I don't bother correcting her. I know what she means. And then we had this whole thing about Black. And I think it was a big deal for me because I never identified using that word, but it had nothing to do with me not thinking that I was a person of color. I was very aware of who I was.
Right.
But we identified more nationalistically and culturally. So that it was a big shift coming to the United States, because it seems as though once you're in the United States, you're just one type of Black person. That's it.
Exactly.
And it's only one perspective. You're from the South. You make slavery, because that's a narrative I think a lot of whites love to talk about, although they think we should be over it. But yet we don't all come from slavery in the same way that they think we come from slavery.
Right. What they tend to forget is that it is a culmination of different cultures to make us into the Black people or Afro-Americans, because as you said, England colonized, Spain, Portugal, the Dutch. So all these people and all these different cultures, then, they go to the Caribbean islands They go to all these places to colonize, even the Americas, obviously. And now you're here. But what they see is Black, and they expect that the whole, Black person is one type of Black person, which is not the case.
Exactly.
Right.
And that permeates every single layer of our society when people of color, men of color are, and I say men because, well, women as well, but in different ways. The dynamics are bizarre in terms of our experience and the female experience. And we're talking jobs, we're talking applications, we're talking how much you're paid, you were talking longevity at times, who's the first to go.
Right.
We're talking about people that are hired on, impeccable skills, but yet never seem to move up. But they're the ones asked to train everyone else who don't look like them, and they move up.
Right.
I had a job like that at first, outside of when I graduated from college. I can say the company because I'm not saying anything bad. It's just the truth. It was International Paper Company,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a great company. But I think I had to realize after a certain point that I was going to end up staying in that position like forever.
Right.
And well, they moved to Tennessee, Memphis, so I think that was the impetus for me to say, exit stage right.
Right. So what was it like for you coming from, we mentioned this before, but coming from the UK and then faced with the idea that you're now just a Black American? That's a whole nother challenge for you. Being from a foreign country and then just being considered a Black American.
I think a lot of things, I had no one to really, talk to about it. One day you're in one country, and actually we took a ship over to the United States. It was the Queen Elizabeth I. So it's always funny when people say, "Oh, take the boat back." I said, "No, I came with a ship, darling. A costume party and everything on."
That's funny.
It was. I thought I was going to be able to meet more Black people, and I was looking forward to that. And I think what happened was I did, but I was too young to realize that there were other cultural differences between us as Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first wake-up call that, I was saying, oh, this isn't going to work out the way I thought it was going to work out. I in my mind, you're a kid and you think, oh, I'm going to walk down the street and I'm going to see a Black person. Hello, Black person.
Right.
Because where I grew up in my community, we did have, a Caribbean community, and we did see Black people, but a lot of my community was spent with, typical British people. And even during that, there was never a Black and white thing. They were just British. So I was just curious to meet more people that were brown. So was a sort of bullying in school, not necessarily because I'm very smart. I knew I wasn't going to be 6'1", so not a physical bullying, but more so mocking my accent, mocking the way I dressed. I was sort of sophisticated for someone at that age,
right.
Because I had been exposed. I'd been traveling on planes since I was 3.
Right.
I'd been to North Africa. I'd been to, the Caribbean. I traveled on the plane by myself.
Right, and the style of dress from other countries is a lot different from here in the States. We're a lot more casual, and everywhere else it seems to be a little dressier. So I can imagine what it was.
So that was, and that was actually that, and I had a very, very thick British accent. I also remember in school spelling. I was an all right student, but in England you spell things differently. Certain letters, a lot of time, good example, color, which I always knew was C-O-L-O-U-R, but in America it's C-O-L-O-R. Certain little words, I did have one incident where I was going to the store and I wanted to get some crisp, and they didn't know what I was talking about. And at that time I didn't realize that I needed to ask for chips, and I think my mom told me to ask for chips, but I said I don't want French fries. That's chips in the UK. It's French fries. So I wanted crisp, which are potato chips.
Potato chips. Right.
but I was too young to even, as I'm even explaining it to you now, to explain it. So it was tricky, and I think to this day I still shift between it. There's always a love that I have for the UK. I think people say, well, you've been here a long time, you're American. I will say I'm Americanized to a certain degree, yes, but the fact that where my roots are, I've been very connected with my family. I have family over there still. Mm-hmm. I watch British TV. And we talk. It's a different type of dialogue. But it doesn't mean that and I want to be perfectly clear, it doesn't mean that I feel, sometimes I get this, like, oh, you think you're better than me, or you think that you're superior in some way. No, not at all. Not at all. I don't feel that at all. I feel I'm lucky to have made a transition from one country, well, to be honest, from my parents' country to another country to this country.
Right.
Okay, because they migrated from Panama to the UK, became professionals rather, and then to the United States. And at that time, I would imagine they were probably up against a lot of racist attitudes as well, because we never grew up with that kind of racism.
Right. Sure. Absolutely. It's interesting you say something, and I want to backtrack just a minute, because you said something about the way you spell color. Now, I know Europeans, I know from England, it's C-O-L-O-U-R. When I read that as a Black American, in my mind, and I'm not sure if other Black Americans feel the same way, but in my mind, you instantly know where it's from, and it sort of a bell tings, because you're thinking about a whole system, like the view of a Black American of England, of the UK is completely different, because you know the history of the colonization. So I'm not sure if everybody else feels this way, but I know that I feel this way. That when I see it written, there's a bell that tings in my head that makes me think of a whole different thing. Like if I see it written color, I instantly think of something derogatory.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
And I don't know if I'm the only one. Please, anybody who hears this, let me know. Write down in the comments below what you think about the word color, so C-O-L-O-U-R. I may be the only one, but
no, I think it's a valid perspective. It's just something I had never considered. Right. Although I can see why you might think that. Yeah.
And therein lies the difference that we're talking about. A person of color coming from the UK or coming from somewhere else versus someone who was born here in the States, and what your perspective is of the world and the way color is, Black people are. That's exactly what we're talking about.
It's very tricky because, in so many different facets, but I'll say one thing is that America wants any person of color with that little drop thing they created, just say you're Black.
Right.
I don't care if you look like Vanessa Williams or look like Lena Horne.
Right.
You're Black. Although now, because of certain political things, they're questioning whether Kamala is Black. So it's very, subjective, I guess, based on who's in charge and who's saying whatever. But I feel that a lot of people from the UK, not just from the UK, who are Black, various shades, some darker than myself, some lighter, whatever, are more into nationalistic identification. So you find someone who's Jamaican who will say, no, I'm not African American, I'm Jamaican.
Right.
Or
yes.
Italian, or I'm Haitian.
Right.
I say I'm British, but I'm also Latino, because you can't get everything in sometimes. Sometimes we're so mixed up.
Right.
But my passport and my birth certificate definitely indicate that I'm a British citizen and I am British, yes. But America strips away any kind of identity that you have outside of the narrative of what they have.
Right, absolutely. I agree 100%. All of a sudden you're American, but you're this, you're that, and you're that. Yeah.
And with that comes a lot of negativity, which, I think the average white person doesn't even see. Being unattractive, being dangerous, being perceived as lazy, being perceived as up to no good, suspicious,
right.
Crazy, angry. So there's a lot of pressure, especially for men, I feel, to keep it all together. And yet people wonder, why is he so upset? Because every single day, when we as men of color, black men,
yes,
wake up, have to step outside of our comfort zone, our apartment, we don't know what's going to happen.
We're faced with a challenge.
We don't know.
Faced with a challenge.
Right.
Right.
And we have to let everything else that may have happened in our lives. It could be anything, like a normal person, because we are normal people.
Right.
We have to let it go. We can't say, "Oh, I had a bad night," or "My wife is," we're having. No. You need to get it together. You're going to be fired.
Right. Yes. Yep. Because you don't know what it took for me to get from point A to here, point B. The challenges that I had walking out my door, seeing, a non-person of color hold their bag tight because I'm walking by. Yep. Someone who won't stop, a taxi won't stop for me when I'm standing out in the street trying to hail a cab. There's so many challenges on your way just to get to the next point. How does that make us feel? How do we feel? You feel defeated. You feel like you can never get ahead. You feel a lot of things, What do you fast forward to right now? George Floyd, everything that happened this past summer in 2020. Has things gotten better?
Oh God. Listen, any fool can see that the way that it was handled was based on either ineptitude,
mm-hmm.
Stupidity,
mm-hmm.
and then possibly laced with racism.
Right.
Because if you were to change George Floyd and put like a white woman who was from wherever,
right,
with the same situation, could have been doing crystal meth in the hotel with whomever. She was on,
right,
counterfeit bills. I doubt seriously the policeman would have had his knee on her neck for that. I'll say this, for that length of time.
Length of time. Right. You're right. You're absolutely
and
right.
I think a lot of them out of control as well. And there's a lot of talking. Ma'am, you have to calm down, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Please, ma'am, we're only trying to help you. Now, and it's just, whereas with us, they're not only are there more guns, there are more policemen coming up in cars with guns already drawn.
Exactly. Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
And sometimes we're already on the ground.
Right. You're resisting everything.
I think that's also a ploy they use. So anything that you do, they're going to say it's resisting, so it's recorded, so that you're going to get a charge anyway.
Right.
You're going to get a charge anyway.
Right. Now, I'm not here to say all police officers are bad.
No,
I'm just saying that, we're just saying that that's been, what's been happening lately that we've seen in the news, and we need to put a stop to it. Now, but I want to talk about actually more about the events afterwards, like all the protests that have happened, all the, any changes that have happened. Do you feel like that the pandemic was a great time for this to happen? Because I do. I feel like it was a great time for it to happen because we had other people join in for the cause.
I do think that it maybe, I shouldn't say maybe, I think it did awaken people's consciousness. Now, of course, not everyone, because that's just life,
Mm-hmm.
But maybe there were some people who were on the fence, and maybe now they're a little bit more aware of the injustices. And I think possibly now they're trying to figure out, well, what can I do? Maybe how can I use my privilege to make it, get to have equality for all.
Yes.
On different levels.
On different levels. I feel like, the pandemic was the perfect time, like I said, because nobody's at work, everybody's out. We saw the whole thing play out on TV. It was so treacherous that people actually got out and protested. It wasn't just black people. It was white, it was brown, it was yellow, it was everything. Everybody had the time to go out and fight the injustice that has happened. And I feel like the summer of 2020 has ignited some change, some positive change, especially in our industry. You see people being appointed to, the committees for the Oscars, for the Grammys, for, studios, people of color, finally getting, some recognition and moving up. Like we were saying before, they weren't moving up. But now, since that happened, I feel like slowly it's making some progress, at least more than it has in the past. More noticeably in the past.
I can't agree with you more. I mean, change is not that happens overnight.
Right.
I'm still listening to disco music.
Right.
So change takes a while, but
right.
and you hope though that by programs such as yours and people speaking their truth and sharing their stories, that someone will hear it and question what they're doing.
Absolutely.
See, change doesn't mean taking an agenda and hitting somebody over the head with it. Change means trying to relate to somebody and allowing them to relate to you on a humanistic level.
Absolutely.
And how we go about that is very different, because I'm not also saying that everyone needs to affect the change the way I do it. I do what I do, you do what you do, and together as a collective unit, we affect change.
Yes. There's an awareness. It's not tolerating. You're not tolerating a situation. You're accepting that's who that person is, or that's what that person does. It's an acknowledgement. It's an education of something different other than yours, and accepting it.
Although I must say, for 2021, actually it happened towards the end of 2020, and I think as we get a little bit older, my tongue becomes a little bit looser, and there are some things I'm just going to call out. And I have to choose what that is, right. When. But I'm not going to sit there in a room of people using derogatory terms or being misogynistic, racist, homophobic, xenophobic, and not say anything.
Right.
And it doesn't mean saying something to incite a riot, on Capitol Hill. No. But it's saying something to check someone.
Right. And it goes back to what you just said, living your truth and saying your truth. That's exactly what it is. I want to talk to you also about, I mentioned before, you're an entertainer. I'll just leave it at that. You're an entertainer because you do it all. You have a special niche of performance that you do that kind of caught my eye. You sing a cabaret style, almost like a Sammy Davis Jr. style singing. How did that come about? How did that happen?
It's strange. My background was really dance, doing the Catherine Dunham technique, and I danced with the Catherine Dunham Company for 10 years off Broadway, and the real off Broadway, which is now they call it Theater Row. So you're blocked down. But you're still on Broadway, but off Broadway, because you're paid a little less.
Right.
But it gave me a lot of experience in terms of being on stage. And the only reason I got into that company was because I was actually trying to be an actor at the time, and I was only getting these roles to be a slave, and Martin Luther King, who I barely knew what he was about. I was really young. I had heard of him. I think he had been killed by the time we came to the United States. But nonetheless, I took whatever role I could get, and I had to take a workshop. And he said, well, you have to take this dance workshop. And I said, well, okay, I'll take it. Because I was a gymnast, and I figured, what could it hurt? And the teacher, Eugene James, he saw something in me, and he said, Scotty, you keep coming to class. I think I have something for you. And about a month later, 3 weeks later, I was doing my first off-Broadway show. I didn't have a lot of steps, by the way, but I was on there, and I felt, again, going for something that you didn't really think you weren't really going for that. I was really taking it as a workshop. And then fast forward, I sang, but I never took it too seriously. So I sang as a youngster, and I had a solo at Carnegie Hall, of all places. So I started at Carnegie Hall, darling.
Wow.
And, but I was always part of the choral group, but I just happened to have a solo in this particular song. But I never really and then I started a gospel choir in high school, even though I knew nothing about gospel music, growing up as a Protestant in England. But I knew how to read music, and I knew how to direct people, and I knew people who knew how to sing gospel music. And so we were at a predominantly white high school, very nice high school, Bayside High School in Queens, but and excellent academics, I must say. But they didn't really have us involved with too many artistic things. It was very separate.
Mm-hmm.
So I started this gospel choir, and I got everyone involved, and we sang. And then I went away to college. I went to Hampton University, which was called Hampton Institute. For those who are listening, I will give you that. Don't want people writing in, it's Hampton Institute. And, you know, people,
right, they do that. They do for sure.
It's Hampton University now, and I played in a band, but to get to the singing part, after I retired from my job, I started singing. I sang a song at my retirement gala. I had a big gala, and I said maybe I need to take this a little bit seriously, and that's sort of what happened. And I just started getting training, and started learning all the nuances of singing, which were not easy. Mm-hmm. It was a whole new world for me. I've been used to dance, and but who influenced me, if someone would ask me, my parents always used to play music by, my dad loved Julie London, Sam Davis, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan a little bit, my mom loved Dinah Washington.
Wow. Classic music.
Yeah. Frank Sinatra, you know, and in England, there were also other artists that, even though they covered a lot of US music, they influenced me too in a subtle way, like Dusty Springfield and Tula Clark. They were quite popular. And I was a youngster, so the sound, but they loved the Motown sound, which also, by the way, got me in a weird way. There's so many stories to tell, and I got involved with, I met Martha Reeves and the Vandellas. I met them, but I met them in Scotland, of all places, even though we both were living in the United States.
Wow, that's interesting.
And I ended up doing backup dancing for them occasionally, not a regular act, and they were kind enough to let me do that. So I was sort of a backup dancer, or Vandella backup, whatever it was.
We'll make up a name for it.
Because Martha would be the one to call it for what it is. But that was another sound that was also popular in the UK, and a lot of people don't realize the person responsible for bringing that sound, the Motown sound, to the UK was Dusty Springfield.
Interesting.
She was actually the first white artist that refused to perform at a segregated venue, which was in South Africa.
I didn't know that. Well, now I know. Wow. Interesting. Yeah. So where are you with the music now? Is it something that you want to pursue, that niche, or would you create a show with that?
Well, I have had before the pandemic, I did do 2 or 3 one-man cabaret shows at local places in Manhattan. I'm trying to think where they were now because it's been so long since but I'll get back to that. And that gave me, it was a good turnout, and it gave me the idea that, you know, maybe I could, if I work at this, I could get a little bit better and, you know, create a repertoire. I mean, that was the first thing when I remember learning one song, and I said, well, how many songs do you have to learn to have a whole show? And a woman told me Marilyn May. I took classes with Marilyn May. She's a big name in the cabaret community. She said, oh, you at least 15 to 20. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I never learned. Are you mad? So I just
you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how many you probably already know. You know, you may not know every single word or but you probably know a lot. You know.
I actually, and you're right. I actually now know well over 20 songs.
Right.
possibly 30. And of course, like you said, like some better than others,
Right.
but before I just really knew one, you know. So what I'm trying to do, I have a YouTube video, so please subscribe, those who are listening. It's under Brian Alejandro, and it's called Let's Get Away From It All. And it is in the style of, well, I'll actually say this. That song is a popular song, Let's Get Away From It All. Frank Sinatra sang it.
Yes.
I'm not sure if Sammy Davis sang it, but the person that captured me was Della Reese. And a lot of people don't know Della Reese had a big jazz musical career way before that Angel show.
Way before Touched by an Angel.
Yeah. And she was hyped up.
Sure
she
was.
Also known for her enunciation that was impeccable.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But if you listen to her sing, anyone out there, please, you'll hear how well she sings and how well she pronounces and produces the sounds.
Great.
And so that particular song got my attention, and so I made another video, did 2 videos. The other one I haven't posted yet, and I want to go back in the studio and do 2 more, and then, you know, sort of like mix them up a little bit.
Right.
On YouTube. So I guess you could say YouTube right now would be, is at least it gives, because I'm not able to be out,
Right.
figuratively, I'm not able to be out there doing what I would like to do with people, because I'm more of a live person.
Right.
But this is something that some people seem to enjoy, and for me, as a performer, it's always been about the audience enjoying themselves, not me showing off or thinking I'm fabulous or a diva or anything like that. It's always been like, if you have a good time, I have a wonderful time.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of, you know, doing live theater and live shows, is the connection with the audience, you know, and the immediate connection with the audience, because you get the response right away, and every show is different. You know, how people are receiving your art, that's what we live for. That's what we live for. That's what they live for. That's what we live for. We want people to receive us, you know, in a good way, or touch them in some way, make them feel something, or like you said, hear them with their impeccable, you know, pronunciation of a word and just send chills down their spine. You know, that's what we like. And so unfortunately right now, with the times that we're in, this is the best medium we have. We have podcasts, we have YouTube, unfortunately, we have to do theater, you know, on live theater where people subscribe and do that, because Broadway is down, but it's making a comeback, you know. What do you see for the future for Broadway? Will it come back as strong as it was?
I think there are so many talented people out there,
Mm-hmm.
you know, young, not so young, older, you know, in my category, but not old, and even the veterans of the field that have been working on Broadway for 50 years or more, 60 some. It will come back. I think they're going to have to make some sort of changes in terms of physical with these theaters, and it's going to be hard because a lot of these theaters, some of them are either historical landmarks or they've been constructed in a certain sort of way, and so that will be, if I were someone doing something somewhere, if I was an architect major, I would be thinking, how could I redesign the theater without destroying anything about it, but make it a place for people to view shows, live shows on Broadway and see. So all those architect majors out there, I don't know if you're doing this already, but you might want to think about that.
And that's the tip of the day.
I'm just saying, I'm giving it away free, and I'm not even going to call it out if you make millions of dollars, and I don't. But just remember Brian Alejandro. So you have me at that show.
There you go. See, reimagine is what they say now. Reimagine a new New York theater scene. Architects, right. Get on it. Listen, I could talk to you all day, but I have to go. How can we get in touch with you?
Well, you can reach me. I'm on YouTube. I have my own channel. Please, please, please subscribe. It's Brian Alejandro. I am on Instagram, and I'm sort of getting new to Instagram. I've been on there a little bit, but my younger following says, "Oh, Brian, you really got to get better with this." Because I'm on Facebook, I have a lot of friends on Facebook, and on the Facebook, I'm Brian Alejandro Scott on Facebook. But the younger generation, they're more into Instagram. So that's Senor, so it's SR dot Brian Alejandro. That's SR dot Brian Alejandro. And one of my friends, she used to be a former model in Paris, and her daughter is into TikTok. So she says, "Oh," she always called me Mr. Brian, you've got to get on TikTok." And I said, okay. So that may be something I'm going to. I mean, even though I'm not, I'm not 20, I'm 27, but even though I'm not 20, I'm still trying to keep up, but not in a way that looks of desperation.
Right.
In other words, it's about changing with the times, and one has to be open to new ideas and new concepts. And that's it. If you want to share your gift or your love or your art, you have to be open. And so I'm open.
Absolutely.
So please reach out to me, send me a message. And you can also contact me through Marcos, and we will see what's the next thing. Hopefully a new video will be coming soon. And just want to wish everyone really the best. And for 2021, there's no need to make major, what's it called that you do at the end of the year?
Resolutions.
Yeah, resolutions. I think a resolution every day would be to treat someone in the way that you want to be respectful, always loving, and understand that sometimes people's backgrounds or situations may cause them to be who they are.
Absolutely.
So it takes you to rise above that and say, "It's all right, baby."
It's all right. Well, Senor Brian Alejandro Scott, thank you so much for being part of the OneMicNite episode, new season 2. Please, everybody, make sure you follow him on all the social media, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, of course. He's got 1,000+ hits on that new song out there, and it's fantastic. Go there and see him. Also, make sure you subscribe to the OneMicNite podcast. We're on all platforms, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, wherever you download your podcasts. You can follow us also at OneMicNite on all social media. You can follow me at MarcosLuis, MarcosLuis, on all social media. Go to the .com, find all the links to my social media. Thank you for joining me for this episode. See you next time.
And because there is a big area that I didn't get to talk about, which I'm not saying, just didn't allow it, is the perception that whites have towards people of color. And that is why we are treated in the police came out of that slave catching thing, which I don't think a lot of people realize. Right. So there's a perception that we're up to no good. And number 2, there was something that you said that I do want to make sure there's a message that not all police are bad. No. However, in Spanish we say sin embargo.
That's right.
Sin embargo, which I love that word.
That's right.
Okay, I'm going to keep it real with you here.
Let's go.
Men, particularly, sometimes are really punks. But when they have a group, that's when they feel very empowered.
Empowered, yes.
So if you have one guy, especially who doesn't ascribe to the raping or the beating or whatever maliciousness they're doing, he's not going to call it out, because then he's going to be the only one, and he's afraid that that's going to turn back onto him.
Absolutely.
So it's much easier to go ahead and rape the woman or beat the black man for no reason. He don't even know why he's beating him.
Right.
But if he doesn't, he's afraid he will get beaten.
That's right.
And this is a very macho male thing. And it's not just American, although Americans tend to lead with the mob mentality. Mm-hmm. But I think I just think it's weak, broken men who are losers.
It is. Yeah, that is the mob mentality. You're right. Once the mob starts doing something, everybody just does it. Everybody. I mean, look at what happened on Capitol Hill.
And I mean, okay, say what you want to say, but Capitol Hill, here's a man dressed with a moose head like a Viking, shirt off. And you were worried about Michelle Obama having a short sleeve dress?
Right. Yep.
So, I mean, definitely we can, but we have to be careful because you got to give them in small doses because people get easily turned off. If they hear the truth too much, they give them a little something.
Got to give them a little bit, just a little, yeah. Once again, everybody, thank you for listening to OneMicNite, the podcast. I appreciate you subscribing and downloading all these episodes. We are over 1,000 downloads on the Podbean app, so you can go there and listen. But you can also listen on any podcast platform. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye.